Anyway, moving on to the Daily Mail, Steve. What have they got in the front cover?
I mean, there's a picture of Jerry Halliwell and the story about the husband. I imagine with some sort of headline like, if you want to be my lover, I said, get with my friends, not the people you work with. But that's probably not a headline for legal reasons. Britain's broken borders. Watchdog report exposes shocking migration system failings. Things like the border ports on arrivals were unmanned. Their flagship humanitarian schemes have problems. Look, I mean, it's not a great report, and it comes on the back of 1.4 million visas granted. Wow. And this was in part, this is Rishi Sunak promised to get rid of that backlog, and he did it by magic wand. And just saying, yeah. Do you remember that scene in Bruce Almighty where he's God and he gets all these prayers and he just goes, yes? And then hilarity
Oh,
ensues.
I didn't realise Rishi Sunak was in Bruce Almighty.
If I could do deep fakes, I'd do a version of that with Rishi's face, because that would work.
So people were claiming asylum, and they could have been, you know, who knows what their status was, or whether they deserved asylum, or whether they were going to chuck acid in someone's face, or whatever it is. And Rishi was just like, yeah, all of you can...
he cleared the backlog. Credit where it's due. That clears a backlog, doesn't it?
That's not clearing a backlog.
It's moving the backlog into the system.
Yeah.
There's also, look, out of everyone in this building, I'm probably more likely to defend the concepts of migration. But anyone, even if you love it, you need a system that works.
Yeah.
Because a system that doesn't work is even worse. Like a couple of weeks ago, the story of the care homes that didn't even exist.
Yeah.
So visas were given out to pretend carers. They wouldn't even be helping the pretend patients.
Yeah.
No one wants that.
And the worst thing about that is I put my dad in one of those cars and he was just in a multi-storey car park somewhere. Paul, I mean, our immigration system seems to operate like a Ponzi scheme. We're told, you know, we need to keep bringing people in at the bottom because people are getting older and we need people to look after them and generate the economy. But the Ponzi scheme isn't even working well because we're bringing people at the top. We're bringing people in who are dependent on welfare and need schools and hospitals and all the rest of it. So it's ending up costing us way more money.
Yes, and the first thing I saw when I read this story is that this must put a significant amount of pressure on our public services.
Yeah.
Then I read further down in the story, and that's exactly what Suella Braverman said. So I'm now aligned to Suella Braverman, who I'm told is the most evil woman since Margaret Thatcher.
Who was also a great woman.
Yeah, also a great woman. However, there's a lot of statistics going on here, and I think the key one is to bear in mind, and it's the way it's going to be tackled in the future, is that almost half of those visas that were granted were to members of families of the people that were granted, that came here to work in the first place. So by reducing that in the future and increasing the minimum salary, the idea is that you can probably reduce immigration. This is perfectly legal immigration, visas, obviously 1.4 million, reduce that by a third, or 300,000, so slightly less than a third.
So we'll only have 1 million people coming next.
Yeah, it doesn't solve the problem.
But to be fair, you can't train doctors in half a year, so there is going to be a lag.
You can get a rough idea of what they're doing. Steve, come on.
I've watched a few episodes of House, and I reckon I can solve a few things. Yeah, I'll have a crack at it.